I'm Ádám Dóra. I'm from Budapest, but summertime based in Barcelona. And I'm a visual artist, usually making paintings. Well, it was always in my life. As a childhood, I started collecting pictures. I was always fascinated with images. And then suddenly in the early teenage years, it started to go into like body of work, like drawing and making images, and start to think about the theoretical part of it. It's really hard to put into word, to verbalize, but mostly it was like started as a kind of visual diary. I was fascinated about the surroundings that has a visual appearance, like objects, people around me, cultural heritage that surrounds me. So I started to organize it as a painterly language. I think we are full of images today. It sounds like a little bit cliche, but nowadays, if you open your smartphone, you look around in the street, there are so many images. And these images usually don't have that kind of body that a human made. And I think it's an interesting part to connect again with nature and do things with dealing things with paint and canvas and that kind of vocabulary coming from the past. And in my works, it turns into another level how you can connect with these images. It was like organically coming like step by step. First, I had a master in my hometown when I was an early teenager years, and then after the high school, I go to the University of Fine Arts in Budapest, and I graduated there in 2017. And then that time I started to practice as a contemporary artist. I'm coming from a classic academic field of painting. So I studied in an academy that has like the things from the past. We had to draw anatomy, we had to draw from life. It's like a kind of education that not really exists anymore in the contemporary visual art scene, like according to education. And it was always interested me because I'm coming from that background, but certainly I started to focusing on my own voice, what other stuff I'm interested. And year by year it started to turn into like a personal vocabulary and stories behind the pictures. For example, I like different kind of things to do when I'm not in the studio, but these things, for example, do sports, make foods, dishes, experiment with cooking, have a deep connection with textiles. This kind of sensual things are connected to the painting itself, what I'm doing. So these pieces are all made by acrylics. In the past, I was working a lot with oil, and to turn into acrylic, it was like a technical change because I found the oil so sticky, that kind of fatty material that it was now fitting to this kind of visions I started to reach. And I really like the materials. Like it's like cooking, it's like making a dish or having a connection with touching a material. It's a very strong thing for me, and I like to build up layers in the paintings. But layers are sometimes only one layer. Sometimes you can see the canvas, which is the original base of a canvas. I like to use it as a composition element. And in some parts of the work, it's like building up a complicated, juicy elements of paint. So it's like a playing with a wide range of tactility of the material. And I like to use different kind of tools like for example, thick brushes coming from a department store, like the cheap brushes that has not that clear vision, and you can make like dirty elements with it. And some parts of the painting are very precisely painted, and this wide range gives a nice richness of the paintings, what I like. Well, the specific message is much more visually, because it's a visual art that it's not easy to represent in words. So it's very hard to verbalize. But of course, it's like more like showcasing some elements that surround us nowadays, but it's coming like in a filter of traditional painting, and the painting that has like very personal touches, personal experiences through daily life. But the main message it's much more about the seeing itself, how we can see an image, where to put a painting, and it makes much more a dialogue in the viewer than a direct message. While in the classical education, it's much more about how you see, how you connect to the world, how you can represent an object. It's like the academic studies of painting. It's like the vocabulary of visual image making. And then in a certain point, as I had in the past with conceptual masters in the university, it was much more about learning about how to think as an artist. This can be so different ways. And I think the most important thing is to be honest and be like always interested honestly in things, and you can go forward to that kind of passion that you are interested. And in a studio practice, I don't want to say I want to forget what I learned in academy, because it's an important thing, an important skeleton of how you make an artwork. But in a certain point, it goes that personal, that it's like you started to step out from that kind of system. And I think if you do painting, for example, do contemporary painting, it's the must to step out from that kind of room, that kind of way of thinking that you will learn, that you studied in the past. So it's like step by step, always experimenting. And maybe that's the difference is about when you are an art student and then became an artist. When you're an art student, you study how to think, you study how to use techniques, you study how to build up an image or a sculpture or different kind of visual art pieces. But in a certain time, you realize that you have this knowledge, but there is something more that's out from the system that you have to achieve. And I was always interested about it out of the system somehow, how to use materials in a different way, how to use that kind of colors that originally was in the school like no use it, for example black, or like I like to play with a raw blank canvas as a part of the composition. So these kind of things are out of that system. So that, yeah, black was always like a forbidden color when I was started painting, and in a certain point I realized that I want to make paintings very colorful, very vivid paintings, but also I want to put these two forbidden element, like the white raw canvas and the black paint, because it's like gives another level to turn into to shake it from that kind of natural element, and also using acrylics, which is a really plastic and sometimes unnatural color palette. It's also like a kind of controversial thing that you make a very organic surface, but the material is a plastic, and it's like just, I like controversial things in a painting and direct, like a little bit explosion and this kind of energies. For example, here you can see like this kind of dirty effects that coming from night walk and visionary of a little bit deeper and personal stories, and I put them together with that kind of elements coming from the daily life. I was always interested to put very basic things, very ordinary objects surrounding me into the paintings, and these works are about like having this little oval shaped airpods that's in a small object. It's concentrating a lot of energy, and around us, around the other space, is like more chaotic, more like landscape kind of vision. Well, the goals are, it's also like kind of journey, but this journey, it's not like a linear journey. It's much more like having different ways, and you can choose the ways, and it's like a kind of balancing things. You can go back, you can go forward, so it's not like that kind of career or story like you can have in another territory. It's much more about having visions, having some desires that you want to achieve, and with the painting, with this kind of daily studio process and research, you can go closer to different kind of desires and different kind of visions realizing. So it's like a kind of magic that happens when you do this, when you create paintings, because first you have just only materials, and then in a magical way, in a certain point, it turns into like images. And that's what I was always really interested in, and maybe that can be the goal of this kind of process and work. The title of the exhibition, I Paint What I Don't Want to See, it's coming from a title of a book when we were talking about with the curator, Ricard. It's showcasing about the work of Philip Gaston and the thinking of him, that he was always surrounding with objects, and he was always reflecting in the personal environment of the life of a painter in that age. I'm really interested, and I have a strong connection with his work in the past and in the recent works also. And in my works, it's turned into a different kind of approach, because I'm painting objects that I don't really want to see. It's just out there. It's just always coming in every day, because we are living in a consumer life, and I'm always being in a cosmopolitan life, and I'm just surrounded with this kind of elements, and also how I use these elements. It also reflects to the painting itself. So that's why it's like a kind of interpretation and connection with the work of Philip Gaston. It was before I had the idea that I would like to make paintings like things surrounding me, that like elements that easily recognizable from the daily life, but I have a personal connection with them, or like another view of other perspective, how I can see them. For example, these paintings are much more going to with the dialogue of an oval shape, and you can see the oval shape coming everywhere in different kind of ways. For example, here it's a very abstract painting or semi-abstract painting. This idea was making a painting about a conversation of this round elements, and you can see furnitures and things from the gym, and also these little airports that has this also this oval shape, and it's like different kind of sizes and energies can make a conversation in one piece. Also here, these elements like saucers or dipping things, reflecting to the fast food, but also reflecting to the painting itself, that you paint a picture and you have a palette, or reflecting to that kind of movement, how it's going on when you creating this kind of dish or you eat this kind of dish. And it's the same thing, it's a very similar thing that happens when you're painting a painting, like this kind of traditionally canvas painting. So it's like dialogue between things. This represents a palette with a dish. So if you have a dish, you have a plate, and with a very juicy food, it's at a certain point it turns into like a palette when you are dipping. So this picture is like this, and the multiple element was like represents a little bit of the plating and how you can set up a table, and it's like this kind of playing with the elements and tools of paintings. These works are a little bit connected to pop art, and I was always interested how a painting can be look like. I mean, if we are thinking in a painting, the traditional idea is it's like a squared shaped flat something, which is okay because it's like a classic image. But what happens if we play with this kind of different parts of canvas? And many artists use this before. Even now in contemporary art, it's a thing that we use multiple things. But if you think in the past, for example, like images from the Gothic cathedrals and something, there were like triptychs that has like different kind of elements. It was another meaning. But nowadays, and this kind of work has like a playful meaning of this element, how we can transfer and play with different kind of canvases. Well, it sounds like a little bit cliche, but it's a very, very, very hard life of work, and also a very, very hard business, the art world. So I recommend everybody that you should be an artist only if it's 100% a must to be an artist. You have to communicate something that is important, that you can breathe without it, you can't live without it. So it has to be like a daily need to be in that kind of moment. And it sounds a little bit pathetic, but if you think about the artwork and the art world, it's a difficult and very complicated thing. Even if it seems sometimes airy or pop or so light things, there are a lot of layers inside. So if you see a picture, an artwork, painting, or sculpture, there are so many layers and works and things going on behind it. So what I can advise to the young is like, if you must to do it, if it's no more option, because it's your only passion to do it, you cannot live without it. Just do everyday practice, and don't stop after education, because I know a lot of talented artists I was studying with in university or before, and they just left because it was something happened, or the vision was not that clear, not that strong, and they left. And maybe that's an interesting point. So I think if you're an artist, you have to do it for a life. It's a life of work. It's not like I have an idea, do a business, and after 3 years or something I can sell it. If it's a thing that you think in a life of work, and there are periods of it, there are like what I mentioned, like a lot of roads that you can enter and go back, forward, and you can look into another perspective. And this is why it's really hard, but also I think it's the most interesting thing, that you can never get bored with it.